Good evening, everyone. I'd like to declare the meeting open at 6:01 p.m. and please note this meeting is being live streamed. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'll now move on to Item 2, which is attendance, apologies and leave of absence previously approved. So Councillor Sutherland will not be in attendance this evening and deputising for her is Councillor Georgia Johnson. Councillor Zanino is an apology and deputising for him is Deputy Mayor Ian Johnson. And Councillor Ames is an apology and deputising for him is Mayor Catherine Hamilton. Everyone else is present. So I'll move on to item 3, disclosures of interest. 3.1, our CEO, Matthew McPherson, has declared an impartiality interest in item 14.4, which is review of delegated powers and duties. So you'll be staying in the room for that one. And for the same item, 14.4, review of delegated powers and duties, our Chief Financial Officer, Jer, has an impartial interest due to the reporting relationship of the position to the CEO and will be staying in the room. So do we have any other disclosures of interest from councillors? No? Okay, so item 4 is announcements by the chairperson. There is none this evening. Item 5 is response to previous questions taken on notice. There is nil. Item 6 is public question time. And we don't have anyone in the gallery. So we now move on to item 7, which is applications for leave of absence. And councillors, we have received an application for leave of absence from Councillor Sutherland from today, the 22nd of May 2025 to the 17th of June 2025 inclusive, and Councillor Ames from today, the 22nd of May 2025 to 30 June 2025 inclusive. Would anyone else like to apply for leave? Okay, do I have a mover and seconder? Moved, Mayor Hamilton, seconded, Deputy Chair. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay, so we move on to item 8, petitions, deputations and presentations. There are nil. Item 9 is confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting. So, councillors, we have the minutes of 3 meetings to be confirmed, and I'll go through each meeting and ask for a mover and seconder and put that to the vote. So may I have a mover and seconder for the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of February 2025, which was an ordinary council meeting. Moved Councillor Ellery, seconded Councillor Jeans. All those in favour? That is unanimous. The next one is that the minutes of the special council meeting, before I get to that one, that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 27th of March 2025 be confirmed. Do I have a mover and seconder? Move Councillor Jeans, seconded Councillor Ellery. All those in favour? That's unanimous. And then the next one is that the minutes of the special council meeting held on the 10th of April 2025 be confirmed. Moved Councillor Jeans, seconded Deputy Chair. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay. Sorry, we have another one.
No, we doubled up on the first one.
You doubled up on the first one?
Yeah, but that's okay. I'll pick the first one. You can do the 9.3 again.
Okay, so we do have another one, which is the minutes of the special council meeting held on the 12th of May. Because we had one on the 10th of April and this is now for the 12th of May. Yep. Okay, so it was a special meeting of council on the 12th of May. Can I have a mover and seconder for those minutes to be confirmed? Moved Councillor Jean, seconded Councillor Ellery. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay, so item 10, questions by members of which due notice has been given. And I have been advised that we haven't received any. So item 11 is questions without notice, and I will go to Councillor Catalano.
Yes, thank you. Sometime in March, I put in writing a request for a briefing about the proposal that had gone to the EPA regarding the fly ash facility. Can we have that briefing, please, before we're no longer sitting on this council?
Through the Chair, yes, aware of the questions from earlier this year. At the moment, we did get considerable feedback via the DWER and EPA regarding the fly ash facility. We're currently working through that series of comments and positions put forward to us. Happy to arrange a briefing accordingly with where we're at and where the progress of that is. At this present moment in time, I can advise that we're currently seeking a peer review for some of the commentary and some of the assessment made on the fly ash facility to respond to the state government.
So when do you think the briefing will be?
Through the Chair, I'm looking to the Chief Sustainability Transformation Officer for some direction as to the capacity to meet that.
Yes, thanks. Through the Chair. So we've met recently with the EPA and they requested a peer review. We're trying to engage a suitable consultant at the moment to do that peer review. So if you require a briefing before the end of June, we may not have the results of the peer review back by then, but we can give you the information that we do have.
Okay, so obviously I want a briefing, and it would be better to be briefed after the peer review. So let's just say that I'm not on this board any longer. When can I come in and hear the briefing given to the MRC as a member of the public?
I guess once we've finalised the peer review and we've got a date where we can wrap it all up, then we'll set a meeting date and we can make sure that you're aware of when that is.
So that, how would that, because these things will happen and people won't know about it in the community, and we want to know about it. We want to know what the MRC knows about this facility and what they're proposing, from the MRC, rather than just learning from the proposal.
So can I just clarify, is your question, will the EMRC hold a public briefing where members of the public can attend and ask questions?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking?
Well, what I'm asking is, if we can't get a briefing once the peer review, before the peer review is done, then it has to be a public meeting after the peer review. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
I understand what you're trying to...
peer review
So
before,
I understand what you're trying to say.
After.
So after the peer review, what you're talking about is a public briefing.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about. So I don't know if the CEO is able to comment on whether the EMRC has plans to do that, or you want to take it on notice. I'm not sure.
Through the Chair, I will take it on notice and confer back with administration tomorrow as to some of the options. But off the cuff, I dare say, if the desire for the council is to have a briefing session with wherever the EMRC is at with regard to that project prior to the end of June, certainly can do that. And within that, we can then prophesise some of the future steps and interactions with stakeholders that we would be undertaking at the appropriate point in time, and whether that be wider engagement or a public forum would probably be open to that discussion to be had at that briefing session, given that we don't know how long the peer review would take, or indeed the position that the EPA and DWER may form in regards to that approval in itself anyway.
So do I have to do anything to trigger that briefing session? No. Okay, thank you.
So just to follow up on that, I would suggest that briefing session is at the agenda briefing, if there is going to be, and that would leave time for a notice of motion if if it was appropriate
So the agenda briefing in June.
in June.
So yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Just to follow up on that, obviously the MRC is aware of what the peer review is to be undertaken, so that can be made available to council. And obviously at that time there's no peer review, but at least we'll be aware of what is required under that peer review.
Yes, through the chair, the presentation would just be an update of where we're at the moment in time, given that I believe an item went to council, so last month or potentially the month before, in regards to an update with summations of feedback from the community for that. So it'd just be an update and an opportunity to discuss prior to the end of June.
Are there any other questions without notice? No, I'll move on to item 12, which is announcement of confidential matters for which the meeting may be closed to the public. So the following confidential reports are covered in section 19 of this agenda. Hazelmere Wood Waste to Energy Project update, legal matter waste transfer station, details of the funding for the City of Kalamunda distribution. Item 13 is business not dealt with from previous meeting. There is nil. Item 14 is employee reports. So I will ask if there are any reports that councillors wish to pull. Councillor Ellery. 7. 14.7. Yep. Yes.
6, I think, decision has to be made.
Yes.
Which one was the Hazelmere one?
That's in the confidential one that I referred to.
Yeah, is that what we're dealing with now?
No. So
Oh.
that's in a different section.
Oh, that you're talking about the officers' report.
Yeah, if there's anyone you
that's
needed
right.
to pull
Yeah, that's
from
okay.
that.
That's fine. No, I'm fine, thanks.
Mayor Hamilton.
14.2, 14.4 and 14.8.
Anyone else? No? Okay. So with the exception of items 14.2, 14.4, 14.6, 14.7 and 14.8, which are withdrawn and to be dealt with separately, can I have a mover to move the other reports not listed? Moved Councillor Ellery, seconded Councillor Jeans. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, that is adopted. Is that okay for the minute taker? Yep. So the first one we're going to discuss is 14.2, and Mayor Hamilton, you've pulled this one.
Yep. Just a simple question on that. There's a comment at number 59.59 in that report that the current percentage between commercial customers and member council is 65.57 versus 34.43%. Can I just confirm that that indicates that there is an increase, because I'm looking at some associated material in the information bulletin as well, that indicates an increase in waste coming in from council members and a decrease in waste coming in from commercial customers. I would assume yes, but I just want to confirm that.
I'll go to the Chief Financial Officer. What page, sorry?
That's page 47 and it's dot point 59. It's just a comment about the percentages, because originally we've always been told the rough percentage is 70-30, but there's a change in percentage. But this is also backed up with some information in the information bulletin. So I just want to confirm where you're at with that.
Through the chair, that's correct. Prior years, we've had some larger commercial customers that's come through, including non-member council local governments as well, which we've not obviously had of late. But they are still progressing. It's still at a high 65.57%.
Okay. I will refer to a further part of that down in the information one, which is 14.8. But thank you for that.
Would you like to move the motion?
I can move it.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ellery, Do you wish to speak to it, Mayor Hamilton? Councillor Ellery, anything? Anyone wish to speak on this item? I'll put it straight to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay, so the next one is 14.4. Mayor Hamilton, you pulled this one as well.
Yep, sorry, my page numbers are a bit of a problem. Without having, here it is, okay. So I just wanted to query delegated authority 1.2.5 contracts for sale of products. There's no express council conditions or sub-delegations on this. I'm not overly concerned with that one, other than to ask the CEO if it would be advisable or not to put a council condition, a CEO condition on that in regards to ensuring that, because you've done all this work in respect to true costs, and I'm curious about whether it would be advisable to put something in there so that there is no contracts entered into the less than 10% profit above true cost.
Sorry, I'm going to go to the CEO.
Yeah, I'm just curious about that because there's no conditions on that at all.
Yeah, through the chair, that's a condition imposed by council on the CEO is certainly possible within that remit. What I would urge council to consider, however, is that not all of the product sales are necessarily profit driven. Some of them are in our best interest to sell for whatever we can get it to, as opposed to transferring it to landfill, or if it's a waste product that we've now converted. So, for example, part of the presentation I gave the other week was talking about ferrocrete, which is a byproduct of the rock which we excavate when we create the new cells, and we crush and then sell that. When we take that into consideration of how much it costs to extract that material and crush it, we wouldn't get much income for it, and we'd have to get rid of that material in some other way, probably back into a landfill. So I think there might be an unintended consequence, but I take the intent of that certainly from a product distribution.
That's fair enough. I actually take that on board, and that's an appropriate response. The next one is the following one, which is 1.2.6 contracts for waste disposal related to operations. My question on that is a little bit different in that when we have, and again, there's no CEO conditions on this sub-delegation. So when we have a problem project, which we clearly have in some of our confidential items, I'm curious about, you have the ability to sub-delegate to a range of people in the organisation, but is there a bit of a policy or a bit of a status where you might revert that delegation back to just yourself and the CFO? I'm just trying to understand what might be the process for you as a CEO in respect to projects that are going a little bit haywire, and if you've already delegated out to a range of staff or managers, how you might deal with that situation going forward.
Through the chair, at the moment, there hasn't been any sub-delegation to any of the staff, so all of those decisions rest and currently will continue to rest with the CEO.
Okay.
There would be discussion with council, certainly, about any prospect to sub-delegate that onwards, and along with that, there'd be any policy mechanisms, guidelines, other framework that may help assist in that delegation, so that there is a scaffolded approval process of what is within the authority of an officer to approve a contract agreement and what is outside of their authority and has to be escalated through the ranks.
Okay, thank you for that. I have no further questions on that one.
Do you have a question, Deputy Chair?
Yes, following up on the Mayor's Councillor Hamilton.
Oops, sorry.
Councillor Hamilton's line of inquiry, and look, I do understand that there are
products which are effectively converting byproducts to defray the cost associated with those byproducts. In terms of a delegation where Councillor Hamilton had indicated that where something were generating or capable of generating a profit, that there wouldn't be a discount, so that there was less than 10% profit over and above the cost. Would we be able to then have a carve-out which effectively put that in place, but said that save for materials which are byproducts used to defray the cost of operations?
Through the Chair, I'd probably have to give that some consideration in terms of a practical scenario in terms of the products that we have, because there may well be products that we dispose of at cost that may come back to us in a higher or lower form of grade and quality that we use for other products. It starts to become a bit problematic in terms of us blending material and doing those other bits and pieces as well. So we'd have to give that some consideration. It may well be something that would be better driven through a policy rather than a delegation as a condition.
I suppose the other part of that is that where, for example, there were commercial product lines and you were of the view that there should be less than that 10% profit above cost, that certainly wouldn't exclude that. So would it be, if there were such a delegation, you could come to council and, for example, say that, well, we're going to offer this as a discount, this is effectively one of these loss leader type products, and then council might be hearing that justification minded to agree with that, or is that something that you would prefer to remain, I suppose, within your scope, or would there be some comfort where, I suppose, you were adopting such a strategy to bring that before council, so council would be on board and understand why it is that you were discounting things in that way?
Through the Chair, I think in the interest of the commercial market, it'd probably be best to be adaptable and agile to make advantage of these opportunities as they present and do favourable deals that are in the best interest of the EMRC going forward. One thing I would say, though, is it would depend on the packaging of the products itself and what other complementary services we might be able to weave into that particular engagement. So while we might actually have a loss leader, we may be able to upsell certain other products that we have where we have more competitive lines of revenue that might be in the best interest of the EMRC. Again, I'd probably come back to it. It might be a better discussion for a policy mechanism or a framework that gives direction and a broad remit for myself to operate in a swift and agile manner.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, I didn't pull it out, but I was just curious, given that Councillor Hamilton had raised that issue.
Do you have another question? You're going to move officer's recommendation?
Yep. I'm thankful for the responses from the CEO because it was a curiosity on my part, but I do believe that the comments allay my concerns. So I'd like to move it.
Okay. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Chair, do you wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Okay. Anyone wish to speak on this item? I'll put it straight to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. The next one which has been pulled is 14.6. Now, Councillor Jeans pulled this one. Councillor Jeans, I was actually going to move a procedural motion to defer this to the June meeting. Yes. Do I have a seconder for that? Mayor Hamilton? I'll put that procedural motion to defer this item to the June meeting. And before I go to the vote, I will just seek clarity from the CFO that doesn't in any way breach anything by the due date.
Absolutely not. The due date is 1st of July. So
Yeah,
that's
so
fine.
we can do this at the June. Okay, so moved by myself, seconded by Mayor Hamilton. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay, the next one is 14.7. Councillor Ellery, you have pulled this one.
Yes, I was going to suggest a deferral for this one until the 13th of June. If it's possible to defer to a certain date, which would allow time for a special general meeting to be called for the 12th of June,
So,
which aligns with our agenda briefing.
so I just check if the date is necessary in the resolution.
You do need to call it whether a future meeting that's being locked in. To a future meeting that's locked in, or for now you can actually specify the date as well.
But again,
Yep.
no meeting has been called yet for the
Yep.
13th of June.
Sorry, through the chair, it's common practice to actually have a date, but I'll just check.
Even, are you okay?
My understanding is that one can't defer things without a date, so a date must be provided, but the intention is not to defer it until the June OCM, but to allow the time for the special council meeting to be called, hence the reason for my Friday date, allowing us to call it and then...
Do I have a seconder? Yeah, I have questions too. I have questions too, but I think before we get to the questions, I have to find out if there's a seconder and then we'll get to the questions. So just to be clear, Councillor Ellery, you are moving it for which date? Deferred to the...
It would either be Friday the 13th, if by doing so it means that it's until such time, or Thursday the 12th, if that then means that that is then the meeting by which we would have to call the special council meeting.
I'm just going to seek advice on the wording first.
Through the chair, the 12th is actually the agenda forum, so that may be appropriate that everyone will be here. So if we call a meeting, potentially
7 p.m.
7 p.m. And then if the agenda forum goes over, sorry.
Missed that.
Sorry, the date of the 12th is the agenda forum for the June meeting. So it may be appropriate we call it a particular time, say 7 p.m. If the agenda forum goes over, then we seek a recess for the agenda forum, go with the...
Just go 6 o'clock, the start time, start with the special, and then...
no, the start time, unfortunately, the agenda forum is already at the 6 o'clock.
Yep,
So
then
what I'm
that's fine.
saying is we could put a special council meeting for a 7 p.m. start. If the agenda briefing forum hasn't finished, we will adjourn that meeting, call the special council meeting open. Once that's finished, we will recommence the agenda briefing forum.
Yes, please.
Yes, so the 12th. Okay. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Chair?
That was just a question.
So I'm going to ask for a seconder first, and then, so seconded Mayor Hamilton. Okay. Councillor Ellery, do you wish to speak to it?
No,
No, for
It's a procedural motion. Oh, I'm just going to check about the governance around questions with procedural motions.
the procedural motion is if there is a mover and seconder, it gets put to the vote.
So we can't ask questions.
Okay, well, if that's the case, I'm going to move to suspend standing orders at this point. Can I do that? And do I have a seconder to suspend standing orders? Councillor Georgia Johnson. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Standing orders are now suspended, so I will allow questions. Deputy Chair.
Yeah, it was just whether it would be possible to have it ahead of the 6 o'clock. So maybe if we had it at 5:30 or 5:45 or something of that nature, just whether that would be more beneficial for all concerned.
Who's that question directed to?
Well, I suppose the chair, or maybe just have that, given that we've suspended the standing orders, is that something that people would be interested in?
It would be very difficult for me to get here
Yeah.
earlier.
Oh, just flagging it.
As
So as long as
myself.
one person can't do it, then it doesn't work. So I'll leave it at that.
We're all planned to be here for the evening. Yeah. Any other questions?
So I do have questions on the actual item itself, but happy to put those in writing so long as we can deal with them. And I think the briefing, I was hesitating about seconding this for a different date to the briefing. I thought it would be more appropriate to have it at the briefing. I actually don't care what time it is within the briefing ahead. It'll be after the briefing, I don't care. But the questions that we have on this item, if any of the councillors forward those to you in writing, could all the councillors be copied into the responses? Okay.
That's your only question?
Yep, that's it.
Councillor Ellery.
Do we need to provide any reasons for deferral?
No. No.
Can we?
You can. Standing orders are suspended. So, do you have something to say, Councillor Ellery?
Look, I'll follow up within writing, but the part of the intent is within the fees to, as has been alluded through my questions earlier, to provide differentiated pricing for contamination levels of FOGO.
Thank you, Councillor Jeans.
Yeah, look, I'm just curious what implications it'll have on other member councils in their, I know our Mundaring Shire is meetings on Tuesday before this, and I'm sure we'll be looking at adopting fees and charges. So if we don't have fees and charges from the MRC, well then Shire of Mundaring won't be able to adopt its fees and charges.
Through the chair, I think in relation to specific fees and a scaffolded approach, it's certainly possible. The advice and engagement that I would give the member councils and customers of that particular service is a commitment to review the fee structure, and that it clearly needs to have some degree of adjustment to it. At some point in time, the member councils and all councils will need to set their fees and charges on some starting figure, and the question will arise as to what starting figure that should be, and whether or not any particular starting figure would be acceptable by any or all member councils in time for that period. I'm not sure. Certainly, whatever we have presented in answering the questions and giving some options to the EMRC Council for the interim arrangement will certainly cover off on that period of the services to be provided to those councils in the initial period of the new year. So,
Councillor Ellery.
So essentially where the example I gave of, okay, is there different potential pricing mechanisms for FOGO, given you already have a range of options, in the absence of anything passed in the interim by EMRC, you could say to respective member councils, look, these are the options we're considering, so this is an idea of some indicative pricing for which you might consider for your respective budgets.
Yes, that's correct, through the chair, and where that would permit itself either by going to the special council meeting to adjust the starting figure, for lack of a better word, there will still be the opportunity to go hammer and tongs at a different structural arrangement for the pricing in the lead into a budget adoption in July, August, whatever the date may be. So 2 bites at that particular item.
So just a further question on Councillor Ellery is we're actually talking about non-member councils fees and charges rather than member.
No.
If I may, Madam Chair, I think you're talking about local government customers.
Yes.
So can I ask a question about the top item, because the member council disposal rate, and for 24-25 you've got it at $218.59, which clearly includes the secondary waste charge, that's ex-GST. What's currently being paid is $180.59 by member councils, and it's proposed to go up to $206.36 ex-GST, so that's a difference of $25.77 that is the proposed increase for member councils. So I'm, number one, the way it's presented in the report indicates a figure which is not currently being paid by member councils. It's clearly related to the budget that was passed last year, including the secondary waste charge, but that secondary waste charge has dropped off. So the increase, actually, no, it's more than maybe, okay. So the secondary waste charge was $38. So the increase, when you take that away, seems quite high, and I'm just curious about the logic behind that when there are multiple other fees and charges in the subsequent pages that seem very low. I'm interested in understanding that, and that is why I seconded Councillor Ellery's apart from the FOGO one as well. But I wanted to understand that going forward, and I don't quite understand it at the moment. So do you have the capacity to outline that now, or would you rather we put it in writing?
Through the chair, happy to take any specific questions about specific line items in the fees and charges on board in preparation for that
Okay.
particular item. I think that would help articulate the responses in a consistent manner. So,
Okay. Okay. I also note that further down, commercial general waste is the same pricing, proposed to be the exact same pricing as what's proposed for the member council disposal rate. So that also ties into the same query.
Any other questions? Councillor Georgia Johnson?
So one of my questions is not quite relevant to this item, but so can you turn your mic off, please? Thanks, boss. Can I just check the date of Councillor Sutherland's leave of absence that we adopted? I didn't write down the return date.
It's the 17th of June inclusive.
Okay, thank you. So I didn't put in leave of absence. I actually won't be here that week. I've taken leave of absence from my own council, but not from this one because I didn't anticipate that I would be required. So I won't be here. I'll also take the opportunity to speak against this one because our council is well and truly down the track of doing its budget, and I think everyone else wants certainty, so I don't want this being delayed any longer.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to move to reinstate standing orders. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ellery, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay, so the motion has been put, the procedural motion, so I have to put that to the vote now, and everyone is aware what the motion is that this be deferred to a special meeting of council at 7 p.m. on the 12th of June. All those in favour? That is Councillor Ellery, myself, Councillor Polifka and Mayor Hamilton. All those against is Councillor Johnson, Councillor Jeans, Councillor Ian Johnson and Councillor Catalano. So that's a tie. So I must use a casting vote, mustn't I? For procedural.
Is it too late to ask another question?
Yeah, it's too late.
Okay.
Just give me a moment. I just need to consider this. Okay, I vote against it and we'll just have to have the discussions this evening. So the procedural motion is lost. We're going to have to discuss it this evening. So we're back at 14.7, which is interim fees and charges. So I will ask if there's any questions first on the actual item.
If we wanted, I'm assuming as per normal, if there was an amendment, you would consider the amendment first, and then if it's successful, it will be incorporated into these fees and
Well,
charges.
first we need to have something moved.
Yes,
you can't
I know.
move an amendment until something's moved.
Yep. Okay. I'll just leave it for the rest of the room for a moment.
Okay, do we have a mover? Councillor Georgia Johnson, seconded by Councillor Jeans. Councillor Georgia Johnson, do you wish? And the reason I'm using your first names is because we have two Johnsons, so that's why.
Thank you. Aware of the potential for confusion. Yeah, I think we do need to have something on the table. I think the fees and charges that's outlined in here are taking into account all that we know at the moment, and I think it says that they're going to be reviewed at some point. I think it's a good idea just to adopt something that makes sense so the organisation has certainty and so do its customers.
Thank you. Councillor Jeans.
Yeah, look, one of the requirements of this is to adjust for the $3 increase in the waste levy charge. So this is really just an interim fees and charges until the new ones are adopted. And I'd imagine it's so that it can give guidance to member councils at the moment.
I have a question to the CFO, maybe. Is it possible to this evening adopt the fees and charges as recommended, with the exception of certain lines, and that be considered at a later date?
It could be, but just be mindful that whatever we don't adopt, because it's outside of the budget, requires 7 days notice. That means it's not applicable. If we say, for example, do it the OCM for June, it will not be ready to be advertised in time for it to be implemented for 1st of July. That's the only thing.
Okay, my next question is, if the fees and charges are adopted as recommended, after 1 July, can there be changes made by the EMRC?
Yes, it can be. We are proposing the next adoption will be through the budget process.
Okay. And the budget is scheduled to be presented to council?
Late July or in August.
Okay. Okay. Mayor Hamilton.
So if these fees and charges are adopted tonight, the implementation of these fees, these interim fees, would be from when?
I'll
Through-
go to the...
Through the chair, it's from 1 July.
Right, okay. In the lead up to the 1st of July, you're clearly in negotiations with member councils who plan to exit by 30th. Sorry, apologies. You're in negotiation with member councils about their various services that the EMRC supplies. So I would assume that those negotiations will be individually tailored to member councils. Is that correct?
Yes, through the chair, the arrangements with any customers, whether they be commercial, local government or otherwise, will be on a case-by-case commercial contract effectively, and it will be proportional to whatever the services of which they're willing and wanting to acquire. The preemption of that would be if there is indeed some value that can be extracted by packaging the deal together in the interest of both parties. These effectively will be the starting figures to package from.
Okay, I'll leave it to Councillor.
Councillor Ellery, you have a question?
Yes, it is a question. On page 168, under note 1, it says attractive discounts are available to major customers and local governments. My question is, if it were possible to move an amendment that said, that looked at saying, amending that note 1 to say discounts available to major customers and local governments and for reduced contamination, would that give flexibility in that these are therefore the figures that are advertised, but it then could be negotiated in the discussions going forward, that you would then have the power to say, well, yes, we could give what you might then call a discount for reduced contamination?
I'll go to the CEO.
Taking up the intent of Councillor Ellery's point and to answer the question, certainly Council could use their discretion to embellish that particular line, and it may say something along the lines of attractive discounts available to major customers and local governments depending on contamination, term, volumes, etc. That would certainly give direction and light as to considerations that I and the organisation would need to make in terms of those discounts.
Thank you, CEO. I wish to move an amendment.
And what would be your amendment?
That the motion then reads that under item 1, after forming the attachment to this report and be effective from the 1st of July, with the following amendments, semicolon.
I'll just
That note 1.
I'll just check that the minute taker is getting this. No, I don't think so. So he'll talk very slowly for you.
Item 1 of the attachment.
So the limb 1 of the recommendation, it says the last bit is effective from 1 July 2025. You've got,
With the following amendment,
so with the following amendment,
and then it's note 1, and this is on a page 168. Note 1, attractive discounts available to major customers and local governments, that's the wording on a page 168, depending on volume, contamination and length of contract.
do you want to seek any clarification?
Et cetera.
Etc. Okay. So, councillors, you've all heard that. I'm going to go to the mover and seconder to see if they agree with that amendment to form part of the substantive motion. So, does the mover accept the amendment? Just your microphone.
Sure.
You're happy with that? Councillor Jeans is the seconder. You're happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, etc. Remove Councillor Ellery.
Fine.
Okay. So that now forms part of the substantive motion that we're. Did you wish to speak to the motion now, Councillor Ellery?
I just have it read out for me by the minute taker one last time for clarity, the new substantive motion.
I'll get the CFO to read it out.
Through the chair, the amended motion that the first limb, council by absolute majority in accordance with section 6.16 of the Local Government Act adopts the draft updated schedule of fees and charges forming the attachment to this report and be effective from 1st of July to 2025, comma, with the following amendment. On page 2 of the schedule, fees and charges, note 1, attractive discounts available to major customers and local governments depending on volume, comma, contamination and length of contract, full stop. And the second limb is public notice be given in accordance with section 6.19 of the Local Government Act 1995.
Did you wish to speak to it?
No need, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? If not, I'll go to the mover to close.
Thank you. I don't really have anything further to say. Just to know, I think, I sort of struggle with the idea that we have fees and charges, but there's discretion around them. And I'm just wondering if perhaps in future fees and charges could itemise the discounts as well so that they're, so it's very transparent. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? That is Deputy Chair Palifka, Mayor Hamilton, Councillor Georgia Johnson, Councillor Ellery, Councillor Jeans, Councillor Ian Johnson and myself. All those against is Councillor Catalano. That is carried. So we now move to item 14.8, which Mayor Hamilton, you pulled this one.
This relates to the information bulletin.
Yep.
And so the first one is Report 1, Outstanding Council Resolutions Register. And I just noted on item 15 on page 5, which was on the 27th of March, the motion 1 is marked as completed. However, maybe I've missed something or overlooked a provision of an outline for limbs B and C in that motion. And I don't believe they've been actioned, but I'm just curious about that, if information could be provided on that.
I'll go to the CEO.
Through the chair, yes, in regards to motion 1, We did present at the briefing forum the profitability of those particular services, the remaining length of the contracts, and the alternative options for provision of the services. In regards to the last point, we did touch on that more broadly given the complexity of it. In terms of option 2, reviewing the establishment agreement, that was an item of the special council meeting of the 12th. Although we've completed our action, that is in train. Whether or not the establishment agreement has been modified or otherwise will be up to the minister and member councils and their decisions.
Okay, maybe I am...
Mayor Hamilton, do
I'm
you have
thinking I've actually got the... Sorry, let me just find it.
Whilst you're doing that, can I ask if there are any other questions? Councillor Georgia Johnson actually had her hand up first. And Kath, if you can please turn off your microphone. Kath,
Sorry.
can you please turn off your microphone? Councillor Johnson.
My questions were on 14.8.4, the sustainability team, so happy to wait till afterwards if you want.
No, you can ask it now.
Okay, thank you very much. So item 10 on this one talks about bin tagging at the City of Bayswater. Could I have some details, please, on where that bin tagging occurred and when the report will be ready, please?
I'll go to the sustainability manager.
Thank you, through the chair. So the audits were completed. The reports have been sent to the City of Bayswater, and it was pleasing to note that Bayswater's contamination level had gone down. I will look it up and let you know.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Johnson?
Yes, please. Also on the same item, I think it's line 20 talks about Omted maybe making some inquiring about purchasing some FOGO material for Whiteman Park. I'm just wondering if we can get an update on that, please.
I'll go to the Chief Sustainability Officer.
Thank you. Through the chair, preliminary discussions have taken place, and the plan is for sometime in 2026, but there's no date confirmed yet.
Thank you. And I have one more, if I might, please. I noticed in there, I'm just getting mixed messages about the FOGO education in the City of Swan. I'm just wondering what role the EMRC's played in providing FOGO education in the City of Swan, please.
I'll go to the Chief Sustainability Officer.
Thank you, through the chair. So the Waste Education team have provided a similar service to the City of Swan as we have with everybody else, apart from manning their call centre. They have their own FOGO team and they manage their own call centre. Probably the additional thing that we did at Swan that we didn't do anywhere else was we did what we call ride-alongs in the trucks, and that's happened until even as recent as last week. So an officer was in the truck present with the FOGO truck driver and observing the contamination and recording bad contamination and feeding that back direct to the City of Swan.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. Mayor Hamilton.
Sorry, I actually had marked my information folder but didn't bring it with me tonight, so apologies for that, everyone. Just in respect to the EMRC tonnage analysis graphs, which is report number 3, and I note that there's a distinct drop in the tonnages between March last year and March this year for... There's a distinct drop in product sales, that's number 1. And there's also a drop in the actual, what looks like commercial tonnages. And I'm assuming the drop in the commercial tonnages that are coming through the gate is class 4. If I'm reading the financial report, it was earlier in and I just want to check that that's the way I'm reading it, that that's correct.
I'll go to the CFO.
So the first one is the drop in commercial tonnages coming through, which I think is graph that's on...
Through the chair. Sorry, actually it is lower than 12 months, yes. Through the chair, if I can refer to, let me look at pages 1, 2. The third page with the charts, you will see on a rolling 13-month basis for Class 4 tons that it is lower than previous year and as well as the budget. That's correct.
Okay. The other one was product sales, 24-25 product sales, all products year to date. There seems to be a drop in product sales. Is that correct? Am I reading that correctly as well?
No, you are correct.
All right, okay. And that drop is primarily due to what products?
Pretty much across the board, we have a lower product sales.
Okay, yep. Okay. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Deputy Chair, nothing? Any other questions? Councillor Catalano.
Yeah, so the drop in the product sales is due to less product being produced or less demand?
More or less demand, unfortunately.
And why is that?
Depending on some of the projects, say for example, main roads and all that, there are less ferrocrete sales. So generally across the board, they are lower.
What are you particularly referring to in terms of products? What are they specifically?
Ferrocrete is the ones that our CEO mentioned earlier about the crushing of those rocks. So it's ferrocrete. I think there were lower wood fines as well, generally. Wood fines as well. Our fines, wood waste, that, for animal bedding, that's also lower year on year.
Oh, what's that from? Is that from shredded?
From shredded wood.
Oh, okay then.
Councillor James.
Yeah, just want to know what the impact of City of Squander's pausing of their FOGO, and whether that has any impact on the EMRC as far as its expected tonnages and operational side of the business.
I'll go to the CEO.
Through the chair, our licence allocation at the moment is 30,000. I believe with all of the customers that we have for FOGO, we are basically internally, in terms of the capacity we have, almost at that tonnage limit in any case. So the prospect would be if that Swan was to continue to spool up its or continue on with its FOGO rollout, we would be seeking partners to help us deal with that amount of tonnage in the most efficient way possible in the interest of everyone.
Any other questions on this item? Do I have Mayor Hamilton?
Question on the CEO's response there. Given we've just dealt with fees and charges, including FOGO, if you're looking at partnering elsewhere to deal with Swan going back to FOGO, because at the moment it's just paused, and they may continue with FOGO or they may just go to green waste, don't know yet. But if they revert back to FOGO and you haven't sorted out a partner to process that, where does that leave us with the fees and charges? We have to amend them in July, is that right?
I'll go to the CEO.
Through Chair, my understanding is we've already got an offtake partner that we co-process with, for lack of a better word.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this item? If not, do I have a mover and seconder? Move Councillor Georgia Johnson, seconded Councillor Jeans. Councillor Johnson, anything? Councillor Jeans, anything? Anyone wish to speak on this item? I'll put it straight to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay. So, can we have a mover and seconder to move the other items on block that weren't pulled from this? Have I already done that? Okay, I've already done that? Okay. All right. Okay, so we move on to item 15, which is reports of committees. There are nil this evening. Item 16 is reports of delegates. So we have the minutes of the MWAC meeting, the 30th of April 2025, have been included in the agenda, and I'll invite Councillor Georgia Johnson if she wishes to speak to these at all.
Thank you. I might just follow up. I think at the last meeting you asked about the e-cigarettes and whether about advocating for them to be banned. if I'm correct. So the feedback that I got on that is that they are banned at all levels of government, but just because something's illegal doesn't mean it's not a problem in our waste stream. And yeah, so a few examples of that were provided, which I can't remember what they were. I just want to point out that some of the reports in here include a better practice guide for waste management public events. It's a really great guide. So, it's a really great example about how to deal with waste at our events with streams for sort of FOGO and education stands. And I know the EMRC does loads of that stuff already. So that's a really good guide. And better practice for waste procurement. This item brought up some really interesting issues. And one of it is in regional areas, there are no opportunities for really procurement choices. There's no options. And there's not enough people providing waste services in the region. So procurement is like a desperation thing rather than a choice. Whereas, when we have options, I think this report talks about sort of a procurement framework, but talking about quality and price and controlling where your waste is going as well. So there's just some updates on what was included in the meeting.
Thank you for the update. We'll now go to item 17, which is members' motions of which previous notice has been given. And we have received a notice of motion from Mayor Hamilton.
Can I actually request something?
Yes.
Could I request that the first motion, motion 1, be dealt with behind closed doors, and that the second motion we can deal with?
Okay. Let me just Okay. So if that's the case, do we just move it to be considered with the other change the order of business?
You can refer this item to section 19.
Yeah. So you'd like to defer this item to section 19?
Yes, so motion 1, but motion 2 could be dealt with now.
Yep, that's fine.
Yep.
So you're moving a procedural motion to move motion 1 to section 19. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jeans. It's a procedural motion. Do you wish to speak to it? No? I'm going to put that one straight to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay, so that now takes us to motion 2. And this is a motion that has been lodged by Mayor Hamilton deputising for the town of Bassendean. And councillors, you've all been provided with a copy of the motion, so I will take that as read. And I will ask Councillor Mayor Hamilton, you're going to be moving that? Yes. May I ask for a seconder? Councillor Jeans. Councillor Hamilton, please.
I don't think it needs to be a very extensive comment on this, but the Local Government Act has been changed to allow independent people to be on audit committees and to also chair audit committees if so desired by the council. I think sourcing that independent person for our audit committee going forward would be advantageous. This is a process which I am just asking the CEO to commence, and it requests the CEO, the second limb of the motion, requests the CEO to develop a policy outlining remuneration for an independent committee member. It also, in the first limb, requests the CEO to commence the process. So without a doubt, it will come back for council approval, the appointment of such a person. So at this starting point, it is simply to commence the process, and we will go from there.
Thank you, Councillor Jeans.
Look, I support this because Shire Mundaring has had an independent chair, in actual fact, for the last couple of years, and that's worked very well, and we've had up to 3 independents, and it just adds, you could say, another dimension to local government, and in this particular case, I think it's a good move.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against? Anyone wish to speak for? Councillor Georgia Johnson.
I can just make a comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just that my understanding is that this is a requirement for the chair to be independent, but I'm not sure if that local government act doesn't apply to this one.
I'll go to the CFO.
In the future, not now.
That's, through the chair, that's actually in future. It's not effective yet.
Yeah.
It's
That has
proposed to
been
be.
proposed. Yeah, so just flagging that might be an important requirement whenever whenever that's passed.
Anyone wish to speak for this motion? Anyone wish to speak against? I'll go put it straight to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. So we now move on to item 18, a new business of an urgent nature. There is none. Item 19 is confidential matters for which the meeting may be closed. So, councillors, can I have a mover and seconder to close the doors? Moved Councillor Ellery, seconded Councillor Jeans. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Yep. Unanimous. Okay, so. Okay, so due to the live stream, I will be reading out the resolutions of the motions passed behind closed doors. So 19.1, Hazelmere Wood Waste to Energy Project update. It was moved by Mayor Hamilton, seconded Councillor Catalano. And the motion is that 1, Council receives the update report. 2, Council selects option 1 as identified in paragraph 23 of the report. 3, Council instructs the CEO to undertake a comprehensive review of the project. 4, Council acknowledges the value of the project as identified in paragraph 21 in the report. 5, the report remains confidential and be certified by the chairperson and CEO. For item 19.2, legal matter waste transfer station. Oh, do I have to? Okay, 19.2, legal matter waste transfer station. This was moved by Deputy Chair Polifka, seconded by Councillor Jeans, and it reads that 1, Council notes the report and legal advice. 2, that Council selects option 4 as identified in paragraph 36 of the confidential report and instructs the CEO to proceed on that basis at this time. 3, the report and attachment remain confidential and be certified by the chairperson and the CEO. Item 19.3, funding for the City of Kalamunda distribution. It was moved by Councillor Jeans, seconded by Mayor Hamilton. And it reads that 1, Council receives the report. 2, that Council authorises the allocation of funds to the value identified in the report from municipal funds to the equity reserve to set aside funds for the payment of the equity interest of the City of Kalamunda in accordance with the establishment agreement. 3, the report remains confidential and be certified by the chairperson and the CEO. 4, the report is declassified following the payment of the equity interest of the City of Kalamunda. And then 17.1, it was moved by Mayor Hamilton and seconded by Councillor Ellery. And it reads that Council requests the CEO to undertake the following action. No. That request the CEO to undertake the following actions. 1, to review and amend Council Policy 1.3, members, chairpersons and deputy chairpersons' fees and allowances to reflect the following. A, that all elected members of the EMRC continue to receive the maximum annual councillor fees and allowances for attending meetings, section 5.99, and B, that the chairperson's additional allowance, section 5.98, subsection 5, and the deputy chairperson's additional annual allowance, section 5.98A, be paid at the minimum of the ranges determined by the Salaries and Allowances Tribunal from time to time. And C, that dot point 1B take effect from the 1st of July 2025. 2, that the amended Council Policy 1.3 be brought back for consideration by Council on or before the June Council meeting to enable these amendments to be incorporated into the 2025-26 budget. Okay, so we now move on to item 20, which is future meetings of Council, and the next meeting of Council will be held on Thursday, the 26th of June 2025 at 6 p.m. I will now declare the meeting closed at 8:37 p.m. Thanks, everyone.